Welcome to Talkin Halos, and for the first time in Talkin Halos history, the entire team, all 5 members of the Talkin Halos podcast staff, and John, who hasn't been here since I think the Stone Age, finally gets to make an appearance with everybody else. John Craine, Nate Green, Brock Davis, Jared Timms, and Derek Ciapala, the whole team coming off the Angels losing 2 out of 3 to the Diamondbacks. Nice way, at least, to finish the series. Going to go around the circle real quick. John, how you doing?
I'm good. This is my first podcast from South Carolina.
Hey, first one since you moved to South Carolina. Nate, how you doing?
Doing well. How about you, Derek?
Living the flipping dream.
Fantastic.
Brock, what's up, man?
I'm good, man. I'm trying to keep my sanity with this Angels team, which we all know is difficult at sometimes. So
it is problematic, especially right now. That's where we're getting the questions for. Jared, you're the most chill-looking dude here. The hat and all. How you doing, married man?
You think I'd live in California like this, huh? Nope. Not a thing. Not a thing.
So I guess before we even start, this is going to be kind of one of those weird conversations where we just bang, bang, go, go. Want to give a chance for our sponsors to break in? We'll quick pause. All right. So we've actually been talking about this a lot. And things are looking a little bit different, I think, with what the Angels would do when all of a sudden they were 6 games above 500. They're heading into what we see as 2 series that look pretty decent for the taking. And all of a sudden now they're kind of falling off a little bit. Injuries are a part of that, a big part of that. And now they are 45 and 41? 45 and 41, and heading into the 25th ranked second half schedule, of which is hardest. 25th makes it harder. They had the 5th easiest schedule first part of the year. And all that in mind, one of the things that Jared, Nate, myself been talking about especially is, man, you got to do something about Ohtani. I mean, what are you going to do here? We're thinking you got to trade him. You got to trade him. They're not a World Series team. Well, now you already see it. John shaking his head. No, this is why we're glad you're here. Now, with things are as they are, what do the Angels do? And that's where I want to go. John, if you're the Angels GM, if you're Perry Minasian at this point, and you're 45 and 41, you are starting to tap into your farm system. You've traded a couple of guys already. They're getting injuries. And yet here you have Shohei Ohtani, who's in the last year of his contract. What are you going to do, man?
I've been saying this for a long time. Call me naive, whatever you want to call me. Shohei left Japan. He could have waited another year. Was it a year or 2? He could have been an unrestricted free agent. Could have gone anywhere, gotten any amount of money. I don't think money is important to Ohtani. Winning is important. And so far, well, if you talked to me about a week and a half ago, I would have said definitely they're going to re-sign him. But right now, this is feeling like the same old Angels. This is feeling like after we swept Houston, I don't know how many years ago that was, and then we swept the Dodgers, and then we got our butts kicked and we just collapsed. And I don't think it was just you and me were doing the podcast. And that's what this team feels like to me right now. Gave us a lot of hope. But as far as Ohtani, a separate conversation to me. I think as long as we do remain competitive, I think we need to buy. I don't know what we need to buy, but we need to buy something. I don't think we should be selling. We should be buying and making every attempt, because I think as long as we're there, even if we just miss it by a hair, Artie will pay. And we all know Artie will pay. And I think Ohtani, I think he likes playing here. I just do. I don't see him going. But one other thing I'll close with is if he signs with the Dodgers, he is dead to me. Dead.
Brock, going to you, Nate. You're going to be on deck. Brock, I'm wondering your thoughts on this. I haven't heard as much from you. What are you feeling like concerning Shohei Ohtani? What are you thinking when it comes to where things are going with him? Have you heard John's thoughts? What are yours?
it's tough because I feel like I've gone back and forth. And shout out to my boss. We talk about it almost every day at work, where he's like, we need to trade Ohtani. We need to trade Ohtani. And I keep defending the point of not trading him. But I keep conflicting myself of wondering what we should do. And I think to John's point, if we could get a trade to work out to either, Rengifo, Velasquez, maybe an Adele trade to see what we can get for him. If we can work out trades where we're not giving up people that we're desperately needing on the field to make a push into the playoffs and try to make a deep run with Ohtani and see if we could pay him at the end of the year, I want to. But if we're going to stay stagnant and we're not going to be able to pull off a trade package in order to make that push, I think we have to trade him. I think we have to. Because at first, in the beginning of the year, I was saying, well, if we were going to trade him, we should have just traded him in the offseason because we're just going to be losing value with the package every day that goes by. But with how he's played, I don't know how much that's changed. Like literally with how he's played, I think that any team that would have been interested in taking him as a 1-year rental before is going to be equally as interested right now because of the value that he brings to the field with how he's playing. If he would have came out and played even just, a little bit less or, 25, 50% less as well as he did last year, I think it would have hurt us or hurt him. But it's tough. But I think with the difficulty of our schedule, and if Perry can't pull off, a really good bullpen arm and a solid number 2 starter behind Ohtani, both, and maybe some extra infield depth, I think we got to trade him. And it kills me to say that. And my boss is going to talk crap to me all day tomorrow because this is the first time that I'm admitting it. But it's very hard for me to be realistic with the fact that I don't have that much faith of the Angels making a deep playoff run with the roster as it is right now.
Nate, Jared, Nate, you know why I'm coming to you, right? Especially hearing John's comments, you know why I'm coming to you. And
of course,
you're the ultra realistic one here. Nate's I'm
always on Nate's side, so I don't know what's coming
here. He will not be on my side here. John, you won't be on my side here.
So hearing their 2 comments and hearing where your thought process is with all this, and now you've seen this series, you've seen how things have been going. I think injuries are really affecting this, Tim. It's Murphy's Law when it seems like bam, 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 getting injuries like this crazy. And it's not the superstars, it's the guys you need every day. It's your hard workers, your guys who hold things together, your net, the guys who kind of your glue. How about that? What's your thought process now? I get an idea, but when you're hearing these 2 guys talk, what are you thinking?
It doesn't change my opinion, honestly. I'm a sit and wait guy. I think Ohtani, I love what he is as a player. He's a fantastic player. Where they're at right now, you're 4 games over 500, but looking at what you got, you're going at San Diego, at LA. You got to win 3 of those next 5 to really put yourself in a position before the All-Star break to really consider even buying. But to Brock's point, you're not going to go get a solid number 2 with what we have without damaging this franchise long-term. You're probably going to have to go give up 2 or 3 of your top 5 prospects to go get a solid number 2, number 1 pitcher, because that's what this team needs is a dude on the mound. And so if you do that and you miss the playoffs, you have set this franchise back 5, 6, 7, 8 years because you're going to have to rebuild everything. You get nothing for Ohtani, and now you're going to have to hope that you do something with this in free agency. So I think it's best for the Angels to wait and see where they're at the end of July, which looking at what they have, they got San Diego, the Dodgers, Houston, New York, Pittsburgh is playing well, Detroit, Toronto, Atlanta. They're probably going to be right around that 500 range, which is literally my least favorite thing with the Angels. They always sit there and they usually just stand pat. So I think if they want to be good next year, you get rid of Ohtani, you get rid of Renfroe, you get rid of Matt Moore, and if Matt Moore's back by then, you get rid of these guys and hope to reset this thing. And you're going to have about 80 plus mil in the offseason to go get someone. And nobody's saying you can't trade Shohei Ohtani and re-sign him in the offseason. Like, that's not against the rules. Mm-hmm. So why not talk to Shohei Ohtani and say, hey, look, we really want to win. What helps us best is trading you right now because we can't win right now with the roster we have. So let's trade you. We're going to get pieces back. We're going to be in the sweepstakes in the offseason. And if we come away, if we come away winners, that's great. If not, well, at least we tried and we set ourselves up to be good for the future rather than risking this whole future for something as a, oh, please let us get into the playoffs, not even like a guaranteed playoff berth.
Jared?
Got to answer the questions. Can you win a World Series this year? I think that question has kind of been answered here. I don't think anybody really believes that the Angels, probably with the team that they're putting on the field right now, can win a World Series. Healthy, you bring in Ohtani, you bring in Neto, you bring in those guys, and they're playing their full potential. They're probably a playoff team. They're probably contending, right? Kind of like they are. They're a little bit better. I think we're talking a little bit different, but the question you got to answer is, can you win a World Series this year? Because this is one of the most talented teams that you can put on the field without winning. I think that's fair to say. I mean, you got a guy who's doing things that no one else has ever done before. You have Mike Trout. You have Anthony Rendon, who can't stay healthy, but has been one of the best players in baseball in the past. You have an extremely talented group of guys, just can't figure out how to stay healthy and can't figure out how to win games right now. So can you go back to the question, can you win a World Series this year? At the moment, I don't think so. Ask me, you got to go series by series at the moment. I mean, Angels sweep the Dodgers. Angels sweep San Diego. They sweep the Dodgers going into the All-Star break. I think we're having a different conversation again, if they're jumping up in the wild card standings. But at the moment, it's tough to keep somebody that you can get a lot of good players for. And you look at the future and you talk about re-signing him, and it's kind of that same thing. It's like, are you one guy away from winning a World Series? Are you Shohei Ohtani away from winning the World Series? I think this season kind of answers that. I don't think you're just one guy away from winning the World Series. So I think money is better spent elsewhere too this offseason. You get about 80-90 million off the books this year to go spend this offseason, and you can go get really deep and you can go get really good with a lot of average, above average players. And I think that kind of proves that you can kind of win. The Angels have tried to win with superstars like this in the past, and it hasn't gone the correct way. So that comes down to Artie too. It's not just an Angels thing. It's not just a GM thing either. You gotta, if you're gonna go in, you got to go all in. They didn't go all in this offseason. Like you would have thought, like the whole conversation was go all in this offseason, and Angels didn't go all in this offseason to put a winning team on the ball club. There were still restrictions. Can't go above the luxury tax. You can't get in the 200 million, 230, $240 million range. Like, if you really wanted to win a World Series, you go spend a lot of money, right? I mean, granted, you look at what the Mets are doing, you look at what the Padres are doing, and it's not working. You look at the Angels done in the past, but if you really want to show Shohei Ohtani you want to win, you would have gone and put the best legitimate lineup, the best everything out there, and Angels didn't go and do that. You started the season off with who at shortstop? So, yeah, I mean, I think right now you got to trade him, but ask me again after the Padres series and every series after that.
It's getting down to the nitty-gritty too. A couple of things. I want to focus on what Nate said, because Nate, you said something that very few of us have really talked about a whole lot. And it's been in the back of my mind is there's nothing stopping Shohei from coming back next year as a free agent. And when he resigns, he's not signing a 2-year contract, a 3-year contract. This guy is signing a 10, 11, 12-year contract. And if I'm going to sign a 10, 11-year contract with somebody, I want to make sure that's going to be a stable franchise the next 10, 11 years, doesn't it? So wouldn't it make sense to perhaps trade him seeing the package they get back for him, and know that, oh, they just solidified the entire foundation for the franchise for the next decade. No one's mentioned that, but that's foreseeable, especially if, that's where he wants to be. Another thing, though, different scope, again, talking about where they are. I mentioned earlier, check this out, guys, 5th easiest schedule, but in teams they're competing with for the playoff berth. They lost a series to Toronto at home. They lost at New York 2 out of 3. They did take a series in Texas, but they also lost 2 out of 3 at Texas. They have lost 5 out of 7 with Houston. They lost 2 out of 3 to Cleveland. 2 out of 3. Sorry, they split with Baltimore. My bad. They split with Baltimore. These are teams that you got to do more than split with, because the tiebreakers come down to actual head-to-head tiebreakers now. And yet here we are. Looking at that with the 5th easiest schedule, what happens now as they face the Padres, who will sooner or later figure it out? The Dodgers, Houston, New York, an improved Pittsburgh team. Then skip Detroit, Toronto, Atlanta, Seattle, who will figure it out. Houston again, Texas, that's what's coming. Tampa, Cincinnati, who is in first place. New York, who will figure it out. Philadelphia. This is their schedule. Baltimore, Cleveland, Seattle, again, Tampa, Minnesota, who's in first place, Texas. That's their second half schedule, minus Detroit and minus I skipped past Oakland. That is oh my gosh, what the crap second half schedule.
But going all in's a good idea, yeah.
So John, coming back to you after hearing all that, what are your thoughts?
I think the Red Sox traded Babe Ruth, and they cursed him for 100 years? Not 100, but so I just don't see. I mean, what you're going to do to the fan base. I mean, if you're asking me, I don't think we could do it. I'd want to get rid of Trout before I got rid of Ohtani. I mean, Trout is really. I think having kids has done something to him. Remember you, Derek? Remember how strapping you were before you had kids, and then.
There's truth to that.
Yeah, gas
probably 40, 50 pounds lighter then.
You know me. I'm just a fan. It would just break my heart that they trade him. Like I said, you're trading a guy away that, like I said, you're trading away Babe Ruth. But so,
John, can I play devil's advocate to that real quick?
Yes, you can.
Red Sox traded Babe Ruth for nothing. Angels would not be trading Shohei Ohtani for nothing. So that would be one thing to that. And then the other thing that you really got to think about is do fans really need to see Shohei Ohtani, or do they want to see winning? Because we've seen Shohei Ohtani for 6 years. Not saying that can't both happen, because it can. We know it's possible. But if we're so focused on seeing Shohei Ohtani that winning goes out the window, then what are we doing here? Are we actually trying to win World Series, or are we just here for the awards? Because I remember how much fun it was to watch the Angels in 2002, 2003, 2004 when they were winning. And most of those guys, like, they were good players, but they weren't superstars. So if we're worried about keeping superstars to appease fans, then are we actually caring about winning? Because I think that's all that really matters. Fans will watch the Angels if the Angels trade Shohei Ohtani and they start winning games. I'm not worried about that. It's what happens to this franchise if we trade for guys, miss out on the playoffs, and now we're bad without Shohei Ohtani for 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Well, it's been
if it turns out to be like I'm sorry, just real quick. I mean, but you guys would have a better perspective on that. But I mean, if it's a Herschel Walker to Minnesota, that ends up, then that's it. But I mean, it has to be a Herschel Walker that results in competitiveness forever. But and then it works out. But if it doesn't work out, you trade him and you get these prospects, and it doesn't work out, well, then I think that's going to haunt us for years. But
absolutely,
Brock.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to point something out real quick, because Jared talked about, I know Jared and I have talked about before how we aren't really a big fan of the idea of signing Ohtani in the offseason. I do like the thought that Nate brought up of thinking about if we were to trade him, it doesn't take us out of the picture. But I think that conversation that he was saying that Perry has to have with Ohtani, I think we all know that's not going to happen, because in order for him to have that conversation, he has to admit that he effed up this roster with certain things like Loop and Tapera and some of the other, not dealing with Rengifo the way he should, and Squid, and all, variety of things. But for perspective for the fans, because I think this is an overlooked thing, is we always talk about like the Rays building their team, right? With how little money they have. I think Rays are an outlier, but just for some perspective, I have two things here. The first place teams in all the divisions right now, their payroll rankings are 8th, 9th, 17th, 21st, 25th, and 28th, with that being the Rays. Okay. And then you look at the Braves, because really they're the best team in baseball right now, not even really close. Like the Rays are a close second, but the Braves have been playing out of their minds. This one's kind of silly because the Mets, I think they all biffed up their roster with signing Verlander and Scherzer the way that they did. But the reason that this point is important is because if we sign Ohtani, we're not signing him for any less than we're signing a Verlander or a Scherzer. We're signing him for 50, 60 million a year, because if Verlander or Scherzer are making 43 apiece, what does Ohtani get? So Verlander and Scherzer in 2023 are making $86 million. Okay. The Braves in 2023 for $74 million. So $12 million less. That accounts for Acuna Jr., Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, Spencer Strider, Travis d'Arnaud, and Michael Harris. That's arguably five or six all-stars for $74 million. So the point that I'm trying to make is that us signing Ohtani is going to hurt us. It will. And I think that's why I've been conflicted this whole time, because I want to appreciate what I'm seeing every night. And I don't want to see him doing it on another team. And I don't want them to re-sign him. So I want to cherish every last game I can during the season. But ultimately, being realistic, they need to trade him. And in my opinion, not re-sign him and figure out the formula of building a team like the Braves, like the Rays, like Texas, where, I mean, they signed DeGrom, but I mean, ultimately they still have young guys that are like Josh Young. They have young guys that are coming up that they've gotten, with trades or building up the farm. We have to figure out that formula. We weren't always like this, and the superstar mentality is not working out. And clearly for the Padres, it hasn't worked out. For the Mets, it hasn't worked out. For a lot of teams that go out and sign these huge deals, there's either a mixture of leadership that they can't figure out, or injuries, or it hits the payroll too hard to be able to build around it. And I don't think it's a good formula. So pray to God they figure it out, and maybe we can get one of the craziest prospect / pro player package that we've ever seen with an Ohtani trade.
Jared? Deep thoughts.
I don't know where to go on this. Like I get a lot of shit for disliking Ohtani. Like I like Ohtani. He's a great player. Probably one of the best we'll see. What he's doing is unbelievable. The Mets were in a spot to go and do that, though. The Mets were in that spot to go and sign those guys, right? The Rays have been really good at development. The Braves have been very good at development, right? They've been very good at that stuff. The Angels haven't done any of that stuff. The Angels haven't been in the spot where they're one guy away from even contending, it feels like, right? This was the year where it kind of felt like that. It was like, dude, you got some talent there. Like there's a team that can be put on the field that wins 90 games. And we have already mentioned it. Like there's a team for sure. You look at previous seasons and it's like, dude, like that's not even a good roster. Like you're starting with Matt Duffy in the 4-hole at opening day. That's not good, So yeah, the Angels haven't been one guy away like the Mets have, and the Angels haven't developed very well either. And do say whatever you want about that. Everybody has their own opinions on what it is or what it isn't. But the Angels haven't been in either one of those spots where they've been close to winning or even started developing well. So I mean, you got to, like Brock said, figure out what the solution is, and go fix that.
You mentioned that, and I'm listening to what Brock's saying as well. And Brock's talking about that, they haven't done this, and you're talking. They haven't done this, and I want to see them do this. Well, I think we're seeing evidence of that. When you're talking about a broken roster, true, there are things in the roster that they didn't fix in the offseason, and they're not perfect solutions. But yet, some of the guys you've followed through, Jared. You're talking about, Zach Neto and, the farm this year. Think back to 2019 when all the wheels came off and we're pulling guys up off the farm who had no earthly business being up here. 2021, the same. Now they're pulling people off the farm who are actually contributing. So you can see the organizational depth improving. You can see those things getting better. You can see them really, you're starting to see what you guys are talking about. But are we there yet?
Which I think is what Nate was kind of touching on, is that we're getting there. We're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're getting there.
And you would completely ruin this whole franchise by trading for guys to help Ohtani and not getting the World Series, because he's leaving if the Angels don't get to the World Series. I think the Angels have to win 2 playoff series for Ohtani.
Look at John.
I do. Like, why would you stay?
Series?
Yeah,
you have to the World Series.
You have to get to the World Series, because why would I stay somewhere? I've been here 6 years. I've been promised the moon. I've been promised everything. We haven't even made the playoffs. We haven't even had a winning record 1 year with this team. And now I'm going to make the World Series when they traded away all of their pieces. I have no future here. They literally have no prospects, because that's the only way the Angels are going to get there, is to give up their future.
You know how pissed off I would be if I was Ohtani and playing my, out of my mind like he is, and we couldn't even make the playoffs? Like, it's so sad.
Well, it's been the exact same thing that's happened during Mike Trout.
During Trout, yeah.
You can say the same thing to Trout.
You don't want to be. Do you want to be the franchise that burns 2 superstars, 2 generational talents in 10 years? Do you want to be that franchise?
But Trout signed an extension.
Trout did.
Yeah, but you only had to trick Trout once. You have to trick Ohtani twice.
Yeah, but also, Trout was an Epler guy. He really liked Epler, and Epler didn't work out, unfortunately. But that's why he was back. He and Epler had that relationship. I won't point this out. I mean, we gotta go. I think it's possible, and there may be disagreement, and we'll talk about this more. I think we need to shelve this conversation for a while. We've got everybody together to have it together. I think we need to shelve it until the trade deadline, because we are at this point beating a dead horse. But I think it might be possible to have our cake and eat it too, which means what Nate said happens. They trade Ohtani. Before they trade him, they said, listen, we're doing this for the franchise. Consider us the offseason. And then you bring back a package which brings the depth that Brock's talking about, where you have players who are talented and cheap for the next 6-7 years on service time. Okay. And you can start building. It's possible, in my view, that while they have to make that call to go in the luxury tax, that they could actually have their cake and eat it too if they do it very carefully. I just want to point that out. I think it's possible, but there's a fine line. I think. Well, am I wrong? Someone tell me if I'm wrong.
What sucks too is I don't know. This is probably very obvious, but for anybody that might not have clicked in our head, if we take that approach, we then give up on both Ohtani and Trout. Because before it was like, okay, now that we have Ohtani and we're kind of towards that end of that peak for Trout, it was like this last 3 years was supposed to be that all in, like all or nothing. But once we trade Ohtani, that's like officially like Trout's not getting anything, because by the time that we would be developed enough to get anything, he's going to be an old man. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be the next Pujols, which is just the way that it's going to be. But
Derek's saying we trade him and then sign him this offseason.
That's what you want to do, Derek? You want to re-sign him?
I mean, I'm saying
that's
it's
what
possible.
He was saying.
I'm saying it's possible with the salary structure as it is, with the players you get back.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
High-level prospects, hopefully, that you have enough cheap service time on them to get them for a few years under there. Okay.
If you plan on not getting more free agents like in the next few years.
If that's your plan. And
I hold on a second. I thought Nate said that, but that was Nate's idea first.
I'm articulating. I'm agreeing with Nate, which is I know rare, right? Nate and I clash a lot. I get that. That's fun.
I just
but we agree here.
If it was Nate's idea and that he said the most positive thing on this podcast, and Nate should
listen to me what I'm saying. Dude. I'm articulating that. I'm agreeing with him. I liked what I heard.
He's piecing together. He's piecing together my idea and Nate's.
Something that he had the guts to say what I've been thinking, but never had the guts to say. That's what I'm trying to point out. And I always want to point this out too. When we're looking at what the Angels are doing, we have to consider who's in their division. Seattle's young. They're struggling right now, but they have a lot of talent in that system there. Oakland will be back sooner or later. Well, I won't say Oakland. The A's will be back sooner or later. Okay. They still have one of the best GMs in the freaking world there who did nothing for a year, was able to do nothing for years because the Oakland ownership sucks. Okay. And you have a Texas team which has figured it out. They have to compete within their division with some very good front offices in their division. They got to get this right. And I'm the one, and you can remember this, I'm the one that actually was saying, hey, maybe they should think about trading Trouty. Oh, no, we can't do that. Well, maybe they should.
If you're trading Ohtani, like you said, then you're officially wasting Trout. So why not trade Trout too?
Well, what's kind of nice is salaries have inflated. Like if you would have asked us like 5 years ago, like, hey, trade Trout, like, well, when did he sign his deal? 6 years ago? 5 years ago?
Oh, 2019, 2018, 2018.
Okay, so 5 years ago. You asked 3-4 years ago, it would have been hard. Like people would have still wanted him, but people would have been more hesitant to pay him what we were paying him, like certain teams. But nowadays, I feel like with the way that the salaries are headed, his salary is not even really like that crazy. Like it's mid-30s,
he's hitting the 50 points lower right now too. Don't forget.
That's very true.
So, hey, it's almost time for us to go. We got to go like in 2 minutes. So real quick, Jared, 30 seconds go. Last thoughts.
Winning solves a lot.
Okay, Brock, 30 seconds go.
I feel like I've heard that before. I don't really have much else to say. I think I've got it all off my chest. I think Jared retweeted a Mets package that was floating around on Twitter. That's not going to happen, but it was just something that was floating around on there for the
Brett Beatty one.
Oh my gosh. I would also take that in a heartbeat. Like, but I don't think something like that's going to happen. But man,
Nate,
I ain't got nothing.
So I've been too positive on this podcast, so I've just got to say something negative. How does Tucker Davidson still on the roster? This guy needs to be cut. It's over with. He pitches once every 3 weeks. Get him out of here. Let's get somebody else.
Iglesias, that's why.
John, 30 seconds.
Trading Ohtani will just make me really sad. But if they traded him to Atlanta, I could maybe accept that. Because I could still see him.
All right. I got 2 minutes literally to say this. Jared _Tims. Brock. BD Rocks 8. Am I right?
Yep.
Frick, remember that. Nate Green 34. Jace Crane.
Yeah.
John. DC Paul on Twitter. Find us. Follow Talkin Halos. And we'll be back both audio and visual on all places that talk baseball. We're out of here. Have a great one. Peace. I don't think I actually stopped it.
Are you going to press the pause button?